Aloha and good evening. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Another presentation of from Aha Wahine Kuhina Papa. We're going to let a few more people into the room before we get started, but we're glad you're here. We see you and we look forward to tonight's very interesting presentation. We'll be starting in just a few moments. Aloha nui kākou, and welcome to a new season of Aha Wahine Kuhina Papa sharing and teachings. My name is Kim Ku'ule Bernie. I'm a member of the all-volunteer Hui of Wahine representing multiple generations. We take turns facilitating the webinars every month, and I'm happy to be with you this evening. This new season is presented with the support of our many sponsors: Hawaii People's Fund, Oiwi TV, Papo'olelo Kahi, the Roots program at Kokua Kalihi Valley, Ko'olau Aina Momona, and Windward Community College. We have just a couple of housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded and live streamed across multiple accounts on Facebook. Questions and answers may be put in the panel below, or if you're viewing via Facebook, you can put them into the comment section. An evaluation will be sent to each of you at the close of the webinar. If you would please take the time to complete the evaluation so that we know what it is you like, how to improve on the programming, and just get a feel for what kind of programming you want to have in the future from Aha Wahine Kuhina Papa. Mahalo nui. All right, so tonight we have a very exciting presentation, ʻEkolu Mea Nui, transforming Hawaii's justice system through Hawaiian cultural practice and values. And we'll be featuring three members of the same family, co-founders of Ekolu Mea Nui: Dr. Jamee Miller, social worker, director of the Community and Aina Resiliency Program, Ko'olau at the Kamehameha Schools. Jamee is a daughter, a mother, a grandmother, a sister, and her ʻOhana comes from Punalu'u. Brittany Kalei K-aloha, public health researcher and administrator at Ekolu Mea Nui. And we have Kalei's daughter, Aubree K-aloha, Kaika Mahine, Haumana. All three of them are going to be sharing with us a little bit tonight. I'd like to say aloha to all of you.
Aloha.
Aloha, Kim. Mahalo, everyone, for having us, and Aha Wahine for doing this and hosting these important topics. We're really excited to be here. We're in different places, so we're on 3 different screens. So I'm happy to see my ʻOhana. So we are from Punalu'u. I was born and raised in Punalu'u, and I continue to reside there. But my ʻOhana, my family, my mo'oku'auhau comes from Ho'okena on my mother's side. Some of the names are Kawe, Kekuanui, Amang, and and Haile on the Hilo side of Hawaii Island. And my grandfather and my grandmother formed at Kaminga schools, met each other there, got married, and had their family on Oahu, and that's how we ended up on Oahu. On my father's side, he's from Kaneohe, third generation Portuguese family, and that makes me. I married my teenage sweetheart, Kalei Miller. He's from Hauula and Laie, and some of his family names are Kamaoha, Miller, of course, Stender, Bridges, and a whole lot more. I think he's related to everyone out there.
With some of those names, I think he is related to a lot of people out there.
Right. We have two children. We've been married 34 years, I think, or 34 years. Maybe it'll be 35 this year. And so we have two children. Our daughter on here, and she's the eldest. And then we have a son who's a year younger than her, Ekolu Miller. And so I'll let my daughter introduce herself then.
Aloha. Again, I'm Kalei K-aloha. Grew up and born and raised in Punalu'u. And then from there, I'm currently residing in Kahalu'u, just because it's convenient. It's a little bit easier on us in terms of my ʻOhana. And so I married my kane, who's Andrew K-aloha. And then we have 4 keiki, and Aubree's our oldest. So we have 2 girls and 2 boys. Very fortunate. And so we love being in Kahalu'u. And I'm currently working with ʻEkolu Mea Nui and doing ʻEkolu Mea Nui, and being a stay-at-home mom with my baby. He just turned 2, just to make life easier on us. And so that's a little bit about me. Aubree, you want to share?
Aloha, I'm Aubree K-aloha. I'm 13. I go to Kamehameha Middle School, Kapalama. Brittany's my mom, and Jamie's my grandma.
Aloha, Aubree. We're happy to see you. I know a 7th grader at Kamehameha Middle School, by the way. Now, we have 3 generations. I just want to mention before we get into the storytelling, Jamie, I've met your mother. So you actually have 4 generations that you interact with all the time.
Yes, I do. If I would be with my mom during the weekdays, because she's been helpful with the babies, with all the babies. She's kind of up until they're 2 years old. She's helped raise my grandchildren, and just this. It's things are starting to get busy, right? So now we're kind of back to all over the place. But yes, my mom is very much involved in our ʻOhana and in the nonprofit, and if we get a chance, we'll share a little bit about the for-profit side. And it's really been the experimentation of my mom and what she loves to do. So she's a she comes from Haile's Hawaiian food. Her mother and her uncle started Haile's Hawaiian food, and her mother had passed away though when she was 5 years old. So her uncle and all the Haile daughters took over the business, and it really was their business, and their mom, Auntie Rachel. But my mom in their family, like their tradition is to make food and to serve people and to that comfort food, and so we'll talk a little bit about the for-profit side and how that relates to supporting ʻEkolu Mea Nui.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It's great to learn a little bit about you, about the family. So we'd really love to hear the story of ʻEkolu Mea Nui. Do you want to start with some photos or want to give us a little bit of a background first?
I can talk, and then my daughter's going to share the screen and she can choose which photos to share.
Awesome.
So when When my son went to prison, he was 19 years old. And well, he was 21 years old. He got into he was a driver of a car accident and his passenger passed away. So he got sentenced to 10 years in prison. And by the time he went to prison, he was 21 years old. This was his very first offense. And it was just tragic all the way around. And we didn't have any advice or anything to share with him or tell him how to survive prison at all. We didn't know anybody that was incarcerated. I was a social worker, a professional social worker. I worked with families who were affected by incarceration, but I was not as intimate as I am now with that whole system. And so we had no advice to give him. And initially, we were ashamed as a family that that this was happening to us. And so and that we had a son that was incarcerated. And so it wasn't like we were super out there with our story. We've been around our family and you know, my children, we've always been around the helping side of humanity and of earth, and this was not anything we knew. And so for a long time we just kind of kept it under wraps, and if you knew, you knew, and if you didn't know, you didn't know. And when it was time to share, to celebrate, so when he went to prison, my daughter had 2 children, and then you know, she didn't want to get married until her brother came back. When we had all our holidays, it was just really sad. And so we didn't really celebrate. And then because my husband and I, we got married when we were 20. We had our children when we were like 21 and 22. We always said, well, by the time we turn 50, we should kind of be a little bit established, kids out of our hair. We're going to have a big birthday bash because our birthdays are close together, and we deserve that. We're going to do that for each other. We're not going to have kiddie birthday parties. So we were becoming 50 and our son was still incarcerated. And so we were like, oh, well, scrap that dream. Like we had been doing all the years that he was in prison. You know, we went through the guilt of we cannot celebrate because, you know, or even like eating good food. It's like, oh my gosh, he's eating stale bologna sandwiches. He don't even like mayonnaise. He's probably throwing it up, but, you know, anyways. And so, so I don't know, we slept on it. And then I said, you know what? And then we started to tell our story. We didn't even have a name for ʻEkolu, for the organization or anything. But we started to tell our story. And I said, you know what? Maybe we should just raise money. I know a couple of organizations that are doing really great re-entry work, and they're always short cash. And so then we talked to a few friends, and let's turn our birthday bash into a fundraiser. I called on all my friends and everybody that we knew. And I mean, we couldn't even, I mean, people kept calling and saying, can we play music? Can we donate? Can we do this? And so our goal was to raise $10,000, and we would give $5,000 to organization, to the Pu'a Foundation, and $5,000 to Last Lap. So one services women, one services men. And so we did the fundraiser, and we used a pass-through nonprofit organization. We quickly called ourselves Ekolu Mea Nui because of my son's name, ʻEkolu, and when he was small, he was kind of bigger than life, always funny, life of the party. Everybody wanted to be around him. And we had a really good friend that had passed away while my son was in prison. And he used to joke around and call him ʻEkolu Mea Nui. He was a pastor, and he always said, you know, you're so full of faith, love, and hope, ʻEkolu. I just want to always give you a big hug from when you were a small boy. And he, anyways, he wasn't able to see ʻEkolu when he came out of prison. He's from Hawaii. His name is Pastor Sumo Sato. And he was close to my son. And so so when this came out, we thought, you know what, this is ʻEkolu. We're going to call this ʻEkolu Mea Nui, the fundraiser. We ended up making $30,000, and we split it. We gave half to a foundation, and the other half went to Last Lap, or First Lap, I'm sorry. And And then we calmed down a little bit, and then people kept asking, when is the next one? That was the best fundraiser we ever been to. And I was like, oh my goodness, I mean, that was a lot of favors. And so we kind of sat on it a little while, and then we started to organize, and people start, I started to get a little bit more involved in reentry, and my son was still going through his journey of trying to get parole. We were trying to be strong as a family and allow him to, trying to help him with his reentry plan, and he kept getting denied. Finally, the original reentry plan that we had for him was to come home and be with us, and we would keep him safe and get him a job, and all the gaps in the system. We committed. We said we'd do that. He had served 9.5 years already, and that's when they paroled him, and it was the exact same parole plan that he had submitted from when he was eligible, which was after 4.5 years. So it was pretty ironic when he came out. So he's been out a year, he's doing really good. But when he came out, he met consistently. This is a photo of him when he first came out, maybe like the second day, and first time meeting the little baby, Kauhi. So everybody, the two boys were born after he went into prison, and I don't think he met them until he was starting to, he was on work furlough and stuff like that. But he knew the two girls, and they knew who he was. So that's kind of how it started, and it was really through all our experiences that we were interacting with the justice system and understanding the inequities that have been happening to Native Hawaiians over many years, generations, and it just came out of a yearning to want to hold our people up and our state up to something better. Like, we knew that we can do better than this. Hawaii can do way better than this. There's lots of admirable advocates, lots of organizations, not too much resources. Maybe there are a lot of resources, but they're not in the right places. And we know we can do better. And so that's what ʻEkolu Mea Nui is about. We know that what is relevant for our people and for our men and women coming out. We know ʻOhana is important. We know that our cultural practices are important when you're trying to get your stability back on your 2 feet. We know that simple things like an ID, a government issued ID, is important so that you can be successful. But I think the biggest lesson, and I would like my daughter and granddaughter to talk about this, is we know that people need to feel that they are loved, and that they aren't judged, and that there are second, third, fourth chances, and that we believe in them. And so I think that's the biggest lesson. I mean, my son had everything going against him except for his family. At some points, we were the only one that believed in him. The parole board never believed in him. His own, social workers never believed in him. Prison guards didn't believe in him. Everything was against him. But we just kept pushing. No, we believe in you. We love you. We know you can do this. And we're going to help you. And there's lots of people that want to help you. And so I think for ʻEkolu Mea Nui, like, that's the values that we stand on, ʻOhana values and aloha, real aloha, and the practices that we know help identify who we are as a people. Like, that needs to be reinstated so that they can start to heal themselves, and even families get healed and community gets healed. But that's ʻEkolu Mea Nui.
That's a beautiful description. Beautiful how it started. I wonder, I mean, what a blessing for ʻEkolu to have you. And I know you feel blessed to have him, but, for him to have that strong network. What about the others that don't have such a strong network? How can the system, how can the community, when there's not family, how can community and just the system help those folks?
So, there are good programs out there. There are caring, loving people. I do think that we lack the accessibility to those certain programs and people. And that's what we're working on right now. I do believe that lived experience is really important, and that we don't take the time to listen to it. The system doesn't take the time to listen to lived experience. So there is really a movement right now in Hawaii when we understand like other states, what they are doing, other countries as they reform the justice system and seeing successes. We do understand that networking and gathering programs and people and bringing the previously incarcerated together with normal community people to lessen that stereotype, to bring down, to minimize the stereotype that everybody is dangerous and they deserve to be where they're at, and that punitive and punishment is the only way to healing or to restoration. So for us, we have a couple of things lined up over the summer that what we want to do, because we saw that firsthand when COVID hit, and there was some legislation that went through and some quick decisions about releasing inmates who were nonviolent offenders, who were medically fragile, and who didn't seem as if they would reoffend, but there wasn't enough resources on the outside, like housing, the IDs, the medical attention that they may need. A lot of them are mentally ill. The treatment that maybe recovery or substance abuse treatment, there wasn't that friendly handoff. It was just kind of okay, go, you're out. And they all had to kind of fend for themselves. And so we were involved a little bit in trying to help with that by providing a reentry home with another organization. And the very community that needed it the most didn't want it. And that was my community. And that was my husband's community. And I knew every single family that was advocating against the reentry home, because I was all their social workers at one time. I was their social worker at one time. I knew all their secrets, and I could not believe that was NIMBYism in my own backyard. And so it was very, it was eye-opening, it was hurtful. Some of them were family. And we weren't gonna benefit at all, because my son was on a different trajectory. But I felt like the community would benefit from it, but they just didn't want it. And so anyways, it brought us to a realization that some communities, even as much as they need it, they're just not ready. So how do we get community ready to, 99% of our people that are incarcerated are going to return home? So why not, as community, we be a part of that? And so we're trying to do some things in our own community with INO, with land over the summer, to bring the families and the previously incarcerated together, do work, do ʻOhana together, get in the dirt together, and that kind of neutralizes and equalizes, whatever status we may think we have or bring, because work will just bring everybody to the table at the same place. So that's what we're sort of kind of working on, and we envision that happening during the summertime. So I think it's
a great lesson.
Yeah.
An amazing lesson. I wonder, Kalei, how can you tell us a little bit about, your brother is back now, you get to share your family with him. Can you shed some light on your part of this journey?
Yeah, so I guess I'll take us back a little bit to when when the court started to get involved, when it was time to charge him for his offense. And so my brother was very transparent. He was very forthcoming. and he wanted to be truthful in every wrong that he did when it came to his situation. And so so we had to do like several ho'oponopono. And so we had done ho'oponopono with the victim's family, and with several families. And so even within our own ʻOhana too, and a lot of it backfired on us. It was used against him in the courts. And it was just a really stressful situation when it came to that, because we all grew up knowing that we should tell the truth and own up to our truths, and be there for those that we hurt, right? And so what ended up happening was it just backfired on him. And so that really hurt me. That really made me mad more than anything else. I'm still kind of traumatized from that. But it also pushed me to be part of Ekolu Mea Nui, which is why we want the justice system to be more informed on our cultural practices, and to know that there are ʻOhana out there that are still practicing these things, and that it shouldn't be used against them, and that it should be used in certain settings. And so that's kind of why I got involved when it came to my brother. And also the fact that like how my mom said, that we didn't know anything. And so before, when we were visiting him at the prisons and jails, it wasn't the easiest experience. It was very taunting. It was very intimidating. There was very little resources out there. I think there's a little bit more resources than there used to be when we were going. And so, and even as a wahine, to go into a male's prison, there was a lot of rules behind that. And I just remember being targeted all the time about every little thing that could just prevent me from visiting my brother. And it was just like, every time I would leave, I would just cry. I really didn't want to do this, but yeah, I would just cry, because it was just so difficult to just see him. And I truly understand the circumstances behind safety and prevention and all of that, right? But just to see your ʻOhana, I didn't think that was fair. I mean, like, I would show up in the same outfit from the week before that I got approved to go and visit, and I would be told that that's not appropriate. So just all of these things, and it was just piling up, one thing after another. And so I think I applaud my family very, very much so, especially my parents, for just standing up for my brother, for being there. I wouldn't wish this upon any ʻOhana, no matter what. I would not. Being that he was so young at the time, he was only 19 years old. And so just like how my mom said, we need change, right? I don't think that it's fair to send somebody who's so young into the prison system and expect them to come out renewed and know what to do with life. Like, that's an unfair expectation. And even with their programs, like, there's some programs that will help some people, but a lot of their programs don't help. And so I think we need to be more transparent in that area. And I think that we need to have real conversations about it. Just like how my mom said that we had no clue. And so now that we're enlightened on everything, it's pretty daunting to know how many Native Hawaiians are incarcerated, the statistics of that, and how much it costs to incarcerate a person, and the fact that we're sending these boys and men to other states in the United States. I just don't think that all of it should. And the other part about it is that my daughter, who will share her story, like, we have these conversations, and even her, she's like, that doesn't make any sense. Why don't we do it like this? Or why don't they do it like this? And so for somebody so young to understand that is wrong is pretty, like, okay, well, I think we need to have serious conversations about this. I think we need to start enlightening everyone about what does it really mean to be incarcerated, and how does that feel to be incarcerated, and to let people know outside of the community that it's okay if they're transitioning out, that we need to be able to uplift them and help them and support them and allow them to be part of our community, however they are. Yeah.
So sorry you had to go through all of that just to demonstrate your support and your aloha for your brother.
Yeah.
And I can see why you don't want others to go through the same experience.
Yeah, he's a thick skin. I don't have thick skin like him. I always cry. But I do know that the good part about it is that he made the best out of the situation. Every time we would call him, he was always in good spirits and just making light of things. And so, but not everybody's like that. Like if I had to go to prison, I don't think I would survive, you know? So I think we have to think about everybody as a whole and not just individually.
Yeah, of course, of course. You just said that your daughter has a story too. Aubree, can you share with us your perspective of this situation with your uncle, with your grandma and grandpa, your mom, of course?
Yeah. So he got arrested when I was pretty young. So like I didn't really know what was happening. I noticed that there was absence of him a lot. And I would always ask them like all the time, like what happened? Or like I knew he went to like prison, but I didn't know what that was because I was like so young. And so I would ask them all the time, like, oh, why did he have to like go away and stuff? And they would always tell me like, oh, you don't have to worry about it. We'll just tell you when you're older. That never really happened. I kind of just figured it out on my own in a sense, because they it was a really sensitive topic for them, and so they really didn't want to speak much of it to me. And so it was just like really weird because he would come back sometimes. Like I do remember times when he was home and I was like, oh, he's back, and then he would go away, and then I wouldn't see him for like years, and then I was like, and then the only things I would remember of him is like those like the times he would call us on my birthday to wish me happy birthday, and that's like the only thing we had or like that I could remember of him. And even there was like that place in like Nuuanu where we would go like every Saturday to do video visits with him. That was also like the only things that I could remember of him. And I know that there was some time, like maybe once or twice, we flew out to Arizona to the prisons to go meet up with him. But like even still then, I didn't know what happened. Like the only time that I like sat down and really learned what happened and really like asked questions about incarceration and that like topic was when COVID started, and kind of like when I wrote the mini grant, and that's when I kind of started to look more into incarceration and how people get treated differently being incarcerated. But like
So you wrote a grant?
or like I got a mini grant. Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
To do work related to incarceration?
Yeah. It was a mini grant from Seeds of Peace. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to change people's perspectives on how they saw incarceration and how they treated people who were incarcerated, because like there was people who were getting labeled that like because you're incarcerated you're always going to be a bad person. And this was also getting labeled on my uncle because like I would hear my mom talking about it. She would say like people's names. She was like, oh my gosh, so and so said this and this and this. And like that's what they would always talk about. And then like I would always just like they'd just talk about people who would talk bad about him. And then I was kind of just sitting in the corner like, oh, there's another person. And so then like that's the COVID hit, and then that, like, I guess when COVID hit, I didn't stay here at my house with my parents. I moved out with my grandma because I wanted to stay at her house instead. And so I think that kind of brought us closer in a way, because I got to talk more to her, and she cuts like the seeds and stuff, the crack seeds for Ekolu Mea Nui. And I wouldn't help her cut it, but I would sit on the side and support her from the sidelines, and we would talk story about what she's doing. And that also kind of opened my eyes to see like what really happens in like the bigger community of incarceration. And so that really kind of wanted me to push myself more to learn more about that situation. And so I was able to interview two people who had like previously gotten incarcerated, and then see how incarceration has impacted their lives, like before they're incarcerated, while they're incarcerated, and then after they're incarcerated. And it was really hard for them, especially not being able to see their family. And then sorry, and then when they come out, all these people judge them and give hate to them. And I didn't think that was very right, because it's not right, because they're trying to come out as better people, and like the society's not really letting them do that. And so it's kind of sad to see that. So that's why I really wanted to write the grant and like to do the to do the project, so I could really like show people that just because I'm sorry. Uh, sorry. Just to show that like it's not a bad thing that people have been incarcerated. It's just like they've just made a mistake. I'm sorry.
No worries, Aubree. Have a drink of water, and we're going to come back to you because I want to know what solutions you came up with. Okay, so sorry. We know Aubree will be back, and we want to hear more from her. We definitely want to hear more from her. Yeah, I've learned a lot of lessons from all three of you so far, and there's so much more to the story. But we have a couple of questions here, and one thing, and maybe we can start with you, Mahealani, but you know, we know a little bit about restorative justice, and it's not necessarily a Hawaiian model. So what have you learned about restorative justice, and how does that dovetail with your recommendations with incorporating Hawaiian practices and beliefs?
Restorative justice does have a kind of like a connection to our traditional practices, but it isn't, you know, completely what we do, like ho'oponopono and healing. But
can you explain a little bit about what restorative justice is?
Right. So it is providing opportunity for mihi, for the victim and the perpetrator to and all those affected to come together and forgive one another, so that we can put that kaumaha behind and move forward. And you know, just like ho'oponopono, sometimes it works out and everybody does forgive and then you move forward, and sometimes you agree to not forgive but you still move forward. So it is you know, I'm not giving any of it any justice. But in short, that's what restorative justice is. It's giving opportunity for the perpetrator to admit their trespasses, their wrongdoing, their behaviors that hurt a person or a family or even just property, and also there's a restitution piece to it as well. And you figure that out together. Sometimes it's court appointed, it depends. But it is an opportunity for that to occur. And then it is an opportunity for victims to move past the pain and the hurt, to accept forgiveness or not. But it doesn't, so right now, it's right now our system doesn't allow that, right? Our system of punishment is you punish the victim, and as if that is supposed to help heal everyone. I guarantee you, any victim whose perpetrator has gone to prison, that's only part of the healing. There's pieces of healing that you have to take on yourself. And some of it is admitting or trying to forgive, or admitting that you can't forgive, or admitting your part in all of this, you know. And so right now, part of the reason, you know, even people re-offend is because they don't come out of that place where it's a new beginning, because they put all that behind. You know, they come out and they haven't had that opportunity, so they end up, you know, living with that label, and perpetuating that label even. And I'm not trying to make any excuses. Nobody should behave in a way where they hurt others, for sure. But there is a process to overcoming that, and restorative justice, our healing practices provide that. Many indigenous healing practices have this form within that is built into their culture and to who they are, and has worked for thousands of years, right? That's how we kept balance. And so we just don't have enough of those opportunities right now, modern day. And that's what we want to bring to light. And it's not only Ekolu Mea Nui, there's other organizations that would want to. I think the hardest part is our system perhaps doesn't believe in it. And so they won't, you know, they don't full-heartedly commit to it or dedicate to it. There was a little bit of ho'oponopono or variations of it that were occurring within our prison system here. And it was mostly working with the inmates for them to ho'oponopono with themselves. And because we don't have that infrastructure set up where we can, you know, contact the victim, and especially for extreme, very hurtful behaviors and crimes. We kind of have something set up for you know, lesser level crimes, but yeah.
I remember, I don't know if it was in the 90s or so, when like the Native Hawaiian Bar Association was putting everybody through ho'oponopono training for at the very least, just to become familiar with the stages of ho'oponopono if they weren't actually practitioners. But are you also, or is Ekolu Mea Nui also involved in that effort with Judge Rick Bisson and some of the ho'opono practitioners to have a cultural court?
Yeah, so that was one of the recommendations made that came out of all the wonderful work that hundreds of people and many years of meetings had, you know, the joint task force and the recommendation that came out of that. That was one of the recommendations. And so we did have preliminary pre-COVID. I felt like we were making some momentum, right? Because we were, Ahakane was graduating at least the first level of practitioners for family practitioners, and they were identifying the loyas were identifying, right, who could take it to the next systemic level of ho'oponopono, like culture court. And so we were trying to ready, and at that time Judge Bisson was willing to to pilot something in Maui, on Maui. I haven't had any follow-up conversations in a number of years since COVID, just because everything got backed up within the court system, right? And but it is definitely, I thank you for bringing that up. That is something that we should reignite to see if there is possibilities, right? Because we were very close to it. Even his boss was lending ear to that idea and was interested in what a pilot would look like.
Yeah, I was just remembering that as we were speaking, and of course it was COVID that has held it up. I had silly, I had forgotten. Aubree, I see you back. How are you doing?
Good. Sorry.
Tell us about, no, not at all. Tell us, I was fascinated that you wrote a grant, you interviewed people who had been incarcerated, you found out, you learned really intimately what some of the issues were, some of the stigma that seemed to be attached to them, even unfairly. But what can be done about that? Do you have any solutions?
I just feel like people just need to see things different ways, because there's that constant stereotype that prison is a place where bad people go, like criminals go, and all that kind of things. And I feel like if people see it from a different way, we're more of seeing it as a place where people can go and think of their mistakes and then come out as new people. I feel like people can see it in a better way, in a sense. And I feel like that can help people, because it's really harsh things that people say about people who have, or about others who have been incarcerated. And it's all going back to just because they've been incarcerated. If that person hadn't been incarcerated or hadn't made the mistake that they made, they wouldn't have that label that they're a bad person or that they're a criminal. And if you're thinking of that in that way, it kind of is it's really only them going to prison, which is making them being labeled as bad people. And so if people, or if just others, or just everybody in general takes the time to kind of give people who have been incarcerated a second chance at life and that things to do, I feel like everything would be more happier, in a sense, and people wouldn't give so much hate towards people who have been incarcerated.
Could break down some walls, right?
Yeah.
Strengthen some or build relationships. Yeah. Kalei, tell us a little more about what Ekolu Mea Nui is doing now.
Yes. So between my mom and I, we're pretty much doing Ekolu Mea Nui. But as my mom mentioned in the beginning, we started to do seeds to help get some funding to support us to provide masks for all those that
Okay, so when you say seeds, you have to be we have to be a little bit more specific. I've had the pleasure of these seeds, but let's share what these seeds are about. What kind of seeds are we talking about?
Yeah, so my grandmother created these seeds. She had a recipe that she always made for us whenever we would go holo holo, on a airplane or car ride, boats, wherever. She always kind of packed the snacks for us, and it's just a bunch of dried fruit and lihimoi, variety of cracked seeds. And so she would cut it all up and put it into a bag, and then that was kind of our go-to whenever we needed it. And so we slowly started sharing it outside of our ʻOhana, and people are like, oh my goodness, this is really good. We need more. And we're like, okay, well, maybe we should sell it. And so So we started selling it. And so now my mom is mostly working on ʻEkolu Mea Nui, and we kind of took the seeds, and now I'm working on Kahikolu, which is the business for-profit arm of ʻEkolu Mea Nui. And so I've been mostly working on that side to try to solidify things and get it a little bit more easy for people to access and order in bulk. And so so I've been working on that while my mom has been working on ʻEkolu Mea Nui side. And we're super thankful because so many people have been supporting us in ʻEkolu Mea Nui and even with the seeds too. It's kind of addicting because people just get a little taste and then that's it, they want it. And so we're just so thankful for all the supports that we've gotten, and like we have like regular customers, which is like even better.
I think I work with some of them.
Yeah, so we're like super stoked about that. And so yeah, so my grandma helps with cutting the seeds. Almost we're kind of all involved in this family. All of our ʻOhanas involved in this. And so yeah, so our seed business is it's growing definitely. Because we sold only a little bit to get money for the mask, and then now it's in Papamakeke, and we have a website that you can buy the seeds through. And then it's going to be in a store soon in Kaneohe, and so we're going to post about that. But yeah, so we're kind of doing both arms. And we're also thankful for everyone that's been supporting us by giving us grants and then even sending us students. So we have a lot of student helpers that help us with ʻEkolu Mea Nui. And so we're like super thankful for them because they can get things done. And so yeah, so ʻEkolu Mea Nui is still trying to work as much as they can. Whenever things come up, and we try to be in the ledge a lot, we try to advocate for all kinds of things that are happening within the ledge that are necessary for us to transform the criminal justice system. And then also the resource manual is another thing that we've been working on. And then I'll have my mom share a little bit more about that.
Oh, I'd love to know about that resource manual. There are a lot of comments coming in, and some folks and you're responding to here on Zoom. For those who are watching on Facebook, mahalo nui. I don't know how you came upon this webinar either, but we're glad that you're watching and viewing. And this is an amazing family with some really brilliant recommendations. We do have a couple of minutes before the show ends, and I'm going to ask Mahelani or any of them to share about the resource manual. And if you have questions, now's the time to pose them.
Yeah, the resource manual is something that we dreamed to happen, because we thought for everything that we learned and we went through, there should be some sort of manual or some sort of guide, some sort of support, especially for us. We're, like I said, we were very ashamed in the beginning. We didn't want to ask for help. We just kind of did it on our own. And you can do it on your own, but wouldn't it be wonderful to have a manual that you could review and say, oh, this is the kind of clothing that I can wear when I need to go this way, or this is a number I need to call for visitations. Oh, this department does this, or my Connie is coming out. I need to get in touch with, so anyways, you know what I'm saying? So we put together a resource manual. It is like 90% done. Yeah, it's about 90% done, and mahalo to Papa Ololokahi who supported us through this, and we hope to have it up soon. This summertime, like my daughter said, we have another intern that's coming to help us that is more tech savvy than us, and so they're gonna help us get it online, and it's supposed to be something that we can continue to update. Because things change. A lot of things changed during COVID that we had to redo within the manual. Yeah, the other thing is just being real active. Like we've tried to be as active as possible during this lead session. I think each lead session we will get a little bit more active and just maka'ala about what's coming up and what that means, and how do we support or not support something that we think is transformative or not. So that's the gauge, right? Is this going to transform or is this not going to transform? How do we
For
help?
the viewers who are wondering what can be done, what can people do? Write letters, follow, legislature's closed now, send support, put together care packages. What can people do who really want to kokua this process?
So throughout the year, we have several things that are happening. Right now, we are concentrated on a gubernatorial forum. So it'll be in July. We're partnering with other grassroots organizations like ourselves, the ACLU, and we are going to hold a gubernatorial forum for governor, and we want to know, what the next leader of Hawaii, how do they feel about justice reform? How do they feel about the Department of Public Safety? What about cash bail? Certain issues that we think can transform our state so that we can be better. So we're behind the scenes on those sort of things. We try to update our social media when we have some things that are occurring. We want to also move in the direction of really listening to youth and things that Aubree has been exposed to and around. We want her peers to also get involved in this, because they need to shape what Hawaii is going to be for them and their children. And so we're going to be planning around that kind of stuff, like maybe some kind of and not us of ourselves, but we love partnering. But how do the youth feel like probably during the gubernatorial, like Aubree or a colleague of hers or a peer of hers may ask some questions to the candidates around what she said. What are their ideas around changing the perspective of the people here in Hawaii? How can you help as governor? Like something like that. So
That's
yeah,
brilliant. It also might be a good opportunity. We're Aha Wahine, but in July, we're partnering with Aha Kane, Aha Opio, Aha Mahu to bring together Aha ʻOhana. So that might be an opportunity, maybe an agenda item for the Aha Opio to kind of dovetail with the work that Ekolu Mea Nui is doing.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. I love that. I absolutely love that. Aubree, mahalo nui for sharing your perspective and your really important work, 7th grade work that you are continuing to do. Mahalo for sharing that. Kalei, what an amazing story. Thank you for sharing your sisterly relationship, how important it was to be with your brother and what you went through to support him and to share your love and support of him. And Jamee, your family. I'm tempted to call you the matriarch, except that I know you have mama too. And so 4 generations of women, amazing. But mahalo for your leadership and for all that you're doing, to lift up our kane, lift up our wahine, lift up our pa'ahau through Ekolu Mea Nui. What an amazing vehicle that is. I know that please read the comments, because you have a lot of support here and a lot of love from a lot of different folks. Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. I'm looking at all of this. No, I have to wrap this up. I'm so sorry. I want to mahalo to the whole Miller and K-aloha, the Vasconcelos and Miller and K-aloha family. Mahalo nui to all of you. To our sponsors, I want to mahalo Hawaii People's Fund, to Papo'ololokahi, to Ko'olau Aina Momona. I don't have the slide, but I know there's the rest of them. Windward Community College, mahalo nui, OEV TV, and the Roots Cafe at Kokua Kalihi Valley, and of course the Ekolu Mea Nui, because in case you didn't know, and in full transparency, Jamee Miller is also a member of the all volunteer committee of Aha Wahine kuhina papa. So mahalo nui to our tech staff, to Le Maile and Oiwi TV, the back of the house, to Napua Cassin and Kaiolani Odom and Judy Oliveira, to everybody who is part of this. We want to mahalo and thank you for tuning in this evening. We will be back in June. We will be featuring mother and daughter, the Kane mother and daughter, Malia and Makana. There we go. On Kaho'olawe. They will be taking us through Papa Yoga. So come with your stretch pants on and an open mind and an open heart, and we will be featuring the Kane mama and daughter. Great. Mahalo for joining us. Stay with us. ahawahine.org is where you can find us. We're happy you joined us. Aloha ke kahi.